Welcome, you join us here with Xhaka on the Primordial map. And it's a very interesting map. Of course, we are still doing our regular old deity settings, online speed, you name it. The usual. But Primordial maps are quite interesting. Let me show you something. When we put the settler tab on, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles that are not safe for purpose, and we're gonna have to avoid them. We still have plenty of land to the north and to the west and so on, maybe some to the east, I don't know. But it's something to bear in mind when playing on certain maps. I love showing different maps off and what they offer, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. What's nice is that literally on turn 1, we've been given like the perfect place to settle, which is really nice for especially a culture game because you're trying to get early wonders, but like, you know, any game would prefers, a lot of players, more so than myself, I'd say, really love to be able to settle as soon as they can their first city and don't really want to be moving anywhere. And generally speaking, I think it's much more important to find a good place. But when your place is literally adjacent to the river, the edge of a river mouth to the sea, you get this sailing boost, you get a beautiful place for your harbor for a +1, +2, which +3, +4 because of 2 districts. Splendid harbor position. You have a really good position for a commercial hub. This will help with our economy, which is of course very important for pretty much every single kind of game in Civ, with 4 districts, the river and the harbor for a +6. It's going to be hopefully quite an enjoyable game going forward. It's a very good start. I want to set off with my warrior over to the west, see what's going over here, see if we can find a place for our second city and so on. And yeah, let's have a look at, as we always do, the kit of our civilization. Now, as you may know, Xhaka is very much a military-based civ. I certainly don't try and cherry-pick my civs. I like being given something random. I mean, I'm someone who used to play only on shuffle maps, and I still play exclusively with tech and civic shuffle. I find being able to randomize, even though the game may not do the best job at it, is the best way to encourage replayability and keep things fresh. So here we have a very military-based civ with very little going for it regarding culture, other than, of course, the specialist unit and the specialist district. These will hopefully give us necessary era score that we would want when we need it. Hopefully not get phased out. Medieval era unit is quite middle game, late game even. So, you know, we should have a good opportunity to take advantage of those things. The Icona itself looks particularly interesting to talk about. It gives you +1 housing. Once civic or tech is requisite is met, corps and armies can be built outright. I can't remember, nationalism or something is the appropriate thing. Buildings in the Icona receive +2 gold and +1 science, faster corps, and army creation. So it will help our science a little bit if we choose to build this. Encampments can often be very good to build early on. I don't know if I build it every single game, especially if when looking towards a culture lens, but it allows you access to Statue of Zeus and Terracotta Army, which is a nice 1-2 punch. Those are wonders for a good adjacency for the theater square. You know, like, there is quite a cool, good amount of reasoning, along with potentially great generals that provide you both the art of war piece of writing, as well as, you know, maybe even an envoy and things like that. Even a relic, I think, you can get from one of them. It's not bad to get such things. And with our general outlay, as I like to do in featuring a culture-esque kind of like start, because let's face it, what I tend to do with pretty much all of my games is try to think how I was going to win a culture game with it. And it's only until once I explore the map more, or see what city-states there are, or get more information of some kind, do I then choose to pivot into maybe science or religion or whatever else. I tend to always want to focus on culture first. So we might build an encampment, it's a possibility, but we'll see to it when we get there. So relatively early game here, we are 20 turns in, we've just completed our very first Wonder the Great Bar. And with that acquisition, we can take this pin away and perhaps reconsider our precise arrangement here. This would make an even better theater square. And it would have at least a +4 adjacency, which is what you're really looking to do. So there are certain policy cards that really help with having +4 adjacencies and things, along with, population size and things like that. We've explored over to the west. We found that it's not containing too much land, but maybe enough for a couple of cities, and also that nobody else is here. There's also a whole bunch of silver. It's a very rich area of land, I guess. 4 separate sites of silver. Another separate river, which I would like to settle our second city on. And it is the rivers, like this one, that's stretching out into land we don't even know about yet, that will help make our decision for Pantheon. Of course, we're being invaded by barbarians. They have horsemen. It makes sense. We just researched horses, and we find that we are just out of range of our own horses. But hopefully with a city or somewhere around here, we'll be able to gain advantage of that. So, looking at the options that we have available for our Pantheon, there are a whole bunch. The desert folklore has been taken in case anybody wanted to take advantage of this, but I don't think that's really a good enough reason. Also, religious settlements is taken, but there's still a fair few options. There's fertility rights, which is a nice sort of general approach, but you can see since we have a lot of floodplains, we have an awful lot of food tiles as it is, so we don't really need that. I'm actually pretty sure that at this point in time, I go for River Goddess. It keeps our options relatively open. We have plenty of rivers to go and use for this. We'd probably be able to settle another city on the river over on the other side of this. It gives us +2 amenities and +2 housing to cities if they have a holy site district adjacent to the river. Now, if I am doing culture-based games in which we're still considering and gearing ourselves around, I definitely like going reliquaries for our religion, and I like making sure that we have a whole bunch of relics and a whole bunch of holy sites, and go for a religious-esque based culture game. That's tended to be what I like to do. So making our holy sites even more valuable and precious is not a bad direction to go in. Speaking of, though, we have been able to acquire quite a few cool, awesome wonders to help benefit our overall empire. We got a Temenanki, which is really awesome on floodplains. You can see just how good our science is compared to our culture. It speaks for itself because the Temenanki obviously giving so much science and making all these tiles very lucrative indeed. Even though this one's marked with a farm, because that's my way of making sure I know that these are all to be flooded and therefore not to put districts on them. It's still really nice to have at the moment with the amount of science coming in. We've also acquired Hanging Gardens. We have put a holy site here, which, I was umming and eyeing the values of keeping this place open for the theater square, but in truth, we're probably going to make our theater square here instead of the industrial zone. I don't think we're going to need that much help in regards to production, and this will still allow the theater square a really good adjacency with several of our wonders. Join us as this game is going in full swing, both in our progression and the music. But we have not come away unscathed. This is our settler that was taken by barbs. We were able to kill the barbs that are coming from this camp over here. However, we need to do something about trying to track this guy down. Of course, this guy has 2 movement range. So he's going to constantly try to run away from our archer who's too far away to catch him. So my plan is to, from this city on the other side, to buy a scout. It is a bit expensive. I don't really want to be spending 60 gold on this, but if it allows us to get this settler back, then it's all good and well.
Yo, el presidente Simón Bolívar, os da la bienvenida a la Gran Colombia.
And there he is, our first neighbor, President Simón Bolívar, welcomes us to Gran Colombia. And, I've often heard about how this answer can change, and it does seem that this is the one where he's willing to give us information of his rather than asking us of ours. So I reckon it's safe to take this one. Anyway, we will do our necessary bit to try and befriend our new neighbor. Also potentially consider selling this because we don't need it as it's a duplicate. We'll be wanting to sell iron to him soon. It's a shame he has some horses. I hope he gets rid of them so that I have a better possibility of selling horses. Because what I, like, pull my hair out watching other people is they'll often, like, have, like, 10 horses or whatever. Nowhere near that max cap would you start with at 25. And they'll just sell them, you know, whatever. And they'll sell them for, like, straight up gold instead of gold per turn. And I'm just like, do you know how much, considering the game is not going to end in 20, 30 turns, you have lost because of doing that? Instead, waiting to as maximum as much as you can, maybe more than 25 if you have an encampment, and then selling it all in bulk to someone who doesn't have any at a much higher premium. So, like for instance, we get around about 2 for 1 gold each, 1 gold per turn each, and a little bit less than that. If you compare that to our iron, strategic resource, it's basically the second valuable resource after horses and before niter. We can see we can get a whopping double of that. 17. If I was to sell him even just 2, he would already give me 2 gold per turn. Yes, but if I was to sell him that now, say, and now he has 2 iron, almost the same amount we had before. He now only cares to give us 7. Because he has access to iron. He just gave it to him. You see that disgusting drop of 10 gold per turn? Of 300 gold in total? You're going to see all of it because you're not going to win. Nobody's going to win the game within 30 turns. It's turn 72. Nobody's going to win just after 100 turns. It's mind-boggling how people can't appreciate that. I did this just to show this off. We're not actually going to do that come the turns in the game, but it doesn't matter. The point is, please don't do that. Unless you are chomping at the bit, desperate, must need something to help get a wonder or something of greater value or save yourself from death or whatever. Don't do that. Wait till you have as much as you can and then sell it all in bulk to someone who doesn't have any, and you get far greater returns. As you can see, the settler realized that we had a scout here and decided to walk straight back up, allowing us to take our unit back. Sometimes a little payment up front goes a long way to help alleviating your entire situation. You know, a lot of things start getting calculated right from the beginning. And rarely do you get to see how important that is. For instance, if you're coupe, this is a little different. It starts from turn 1. But for everybody else, culture and science starts getting accumulated as soon as you build your first city. And, you know, that can sometimes be a bit strange that it's always piling in. Another thing that actually is accruing the whole time that you might not be able to see, because again, like we talked about with the GUI, mechanics and, you know, your great works and all that only start being revealed once you have one. You only need one, but, you know, if you don't have any, you don't get this button. And the same is true, really, for a lot of other things, because the game kind of, it probably thinks it's mollycoddling, or at least, you know, coaxing a player into learning and knowing only about what's important and relevant at the time that they're playing, so it doesn't overload people any more than it already needs to, because it's a 4X, with information that isn't really relevant. But it's still relevant to know about how things are doing, in case you want to buff them, or in case you want to prepare for them. What I'm trying to get at is, you notice here, there is no tab here for envoys. There's also no tab for spies, because we don't have one of those either. But there's no tab for envoys. So you might ask yourself, what the hell is happening to all my influence points? Is there any value in having a charismatic leader and getting extra influence points? Because it's almost turn 100, and we still have yet to see a single city-state. Now, that's a very rare occurrence. rather special to this game. So I'm kind of glad to show it off in a weird kind of like not so beneficial way, because this sort of situation is pretty damn rare. Most of the time you will see your first city state potentially before even another AI. Most of the time you'll see your first city state within the first 30 odd turns, maybe even less than that. If you build scouts, maybe even earlier. But as we move this archer down here, we find ourselves meeting Nalanda. And Nalanda are our very first city state. You can see here that we now have that envoys tab. And crucially, you can see that we have stockpiled 9 envoys. This means, as is true with other aspects, as I mentioned earlier, that we have been accumulating influence points for more envoys throughout the course of the game since turn 1. And yes, changing government has changed the amount of influence points we get and how many envoys we get as we've been getting it. Yes, changing and having charismatic leader has had an effect, but it's not been an effect that we've been able to see. One could argue that's a little strange. One could argue that maybe in Civ 7 they should allow you to see things prior to them being, operable. But, I mean, that's for Axis to decide, I guess. But I will say this. The fact that we have been able to stockpile envoys means that when we finally access the ability to do so, we can, for instance, buy that, change this to diplomatic leader, diplomatic league rather. I always get confused with the names. Put 1 in, realize that's not enough, put another 4 in, and get suzerainty of Nalanda. Now, you may know that I really like Stamford Ruffles, and I am intent on making this our city at some point. It has a particular suzerain bonus. We will come to that, and it will build us a Mahavara, which is like a building, an improvement that allows us to get additional science and so on. But hey, we now have a little more map info, we now have little benefits, but the key to remember is do not worry about these sort of anomalies that might occur in your game, whereby you don't see a city-state for so long, and you're like, well, what's the point in it? Am I really doing anything? Is it just being wasted? Do I have to rush to try and find a city-state every game in order to not waste my turns and not waste influence points? No, they will be there for you as and when you need them. Here we are about to build Hagia Sophia, one of my favorite wonders, not only because it's such a safe wonder to build, you can pretty much guarantee it every game as long as you satisfy the very simple requirements of being adjacent to a holy site on flat land, which is not really that difficult, to be honest. And therefore a very easy tool to use to making fantastic arrangements for incredibly powerful theater squares. +8 now looking to be from the Temenanki Casta Construction, the Great Bath and the Hagia Sophia. 1 turn remaining. But it also is incredibly powerful for a religious victory. We've been trying to make a culture victory work this whole time. However, I can't pass up an opportunity when it presents itself.
It is a beautiful and important monument and an international intercultural treasure. Unless and until it can be shared by both religions in harmony, which would be a grand idea, it should remain a secular building, honoring both religions who have made it beautiful. Talking about topical events. That phrasing, that whole paragraph. It's incredibly current. But Hagia Sophia is a fantastic, great wonder. I'm a big fan. In general, getting a puzzle to spread religion extra time can also mean getting them to convert barbarians next time, or a whole bunch of other things. And it's so easy to make, it's so untouched by other civs, it's such a good wonder in general. It kind of ticks all the boxes, generally speaking. So yeah, very nice, but it's gonna be helping us build an apostle army. That's right, we've got Yerevan. It is currently only Thor, but that is too much for our only 2 right now. We can, of course, change back to Diplomatic League.
Get ourselves some little extra faith from the, the 2 faith icons here. We have a holy site already there. We can summon apostles from here and from here. And we will start spreading the world of our religion. Welcome back. It's turn 137. We have converted over half the world, as you can see here. And we have a ton of apostle units doing our bidding. If we look at the unit list, we can see that we have probably like 20 to 30 apostle units and counting. We have still more than enough religion and faith to produce even more. As you can see, since we are, of course, in a theocratic government and reducing the cost of our units, both with that and, of course, Holy Order. We don't have mosque. We got cathedral because, like I say, most of this game was gearing for culture, but that's fine. Pivoting from culture to religion is totally reasonable. But this turn, we're going to do something extra special. I absolutely love this particular great merchant. Probably my favorite great person all. Stanford Ruffles. Incredibly powerful unit. And we're about to take Nalanda. But first, I just want to take one Mahavara. Give ourselves a radio. And secure our final city for this particular game. So that's it. We have all the cities on this continent. And with that, we will soon be able to advance our religion throughout the globe and win. And so it has all come down to this. In one of my quicker games, I must say, in only 152 turns, which when you're pivoting for most of it from a previous win con is not too bad, I don't think. We have acquired the faith of every other civilization aside from finally Amanitore. And usually in Civ games, at least for me, one particular Civ is the one that the AI uses to kind of try and stop you in your tracks. In this game, certainly Amanitore was indeed that. Look at how close she is on the science. Incredibly powerful. Again, Amanitore, miles ahead of everybody else in culture. It was truly remarkable just how much of an incredible civilization that, one of my favorite civs to be honest, built with the AI. I mean, I don't know what it says for her as a general civ in practice, but certainly in this game, she is a worthy foe. But it is time. With this final press of the button, we will have won our latest religious game.
We have a basic need to believe in something greater than ourselves. We crave solace in the darkness, and light unto our path. Thanks to you, we found meaning amid the cosmos.
Thank you so much everyone for joining and watching the video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and the best way to show that is to subscribe to the channel, like the video, perhaps leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. But till then, have a good one.